What actually makes a good James Bond game? Is it the gunfights, the gadgets, the fast cars, the women? Or is it making you feel like a spy instead of an action hero? After spending some time completing this game, I think I finally have an answer. I think I gave it a pretty high score, but not for the reasons I expected, so here's my review. Before we get started, a couple of quick things. I played the PC version on an RTX 4080 with an i9 processor, so that's the version this review will be based on. If you're playing on a console or with different hardware, your experience may vary. Also, while I'll try to avoid any major plot twists and spoilers, there will be some light ones when I talk about a few things here and there. So one thing I've noticed is that a lot of people compare this game to Hitman or Uncharted. I can't really comment on those comparisons because I've never played any of those games. The game I did play though that it reminded me of was Batman, Arkham Asylum, and Arkham City. There are stealth sections, hand-to-hand combat, crawling through vents, and even boss fights where you simply can't rush in and face the enemy one-on-one. You have to stay hidden, use the environment, and strike when the opportunity presents itself. But unlike Batman, First Light isn't trying to make you feel like a superhero. It's trying to make you feel like James Bond, and for the most part, it succeeds. For 007 First Light, the gameplay is easily one of its biggest strengths. There's a lot of variety throughout the campaign. You'll sneak through enemy compounds, silently take down guards, get into fistfights, exchange gunfire, race through the streets in cars, speed across the water in boats, and make use of Bond's gadgets along the way. More importantly, the game understands what separates James Bond from most action heroes. Older Bond games often felt like shooters where you just happen to be playing as James Bond. First Light encourages a different approach. You will infiltrate restricted areas, bluff your way through conversations, gather intelligence, use gadgets to solve problems, and only use lethal force when you have no other option. The license to kill is basically a last resort in this game. That made me feel like I was actually playing as a spy instead of just another guy with a gun. That said, the gameplay does start to lose a bit of variety towards the end. Early on, missions do a great job of mixing things up, and the game is really fresh. But in the later parts of the game, I started noticing a little bit of a pattern. You stealth for a bit, and then it ends in a shootout. You stealth for a bit, and then it ends in the shootout, over and over again. It never became boring, but I caught myself a few times being like, okay, I know what's coming up. So I kind of wish that the end game had a little bit more variety. Another thing I wish the developers had added was the ability to drag an unconscious body. The game wants you to be a spy. And if you go and you quietly take someone down in the middle of a hallway, you're forced to leave their body right there. And if a guard is doing a patrol and he walks by and sees the body, he's automatically alerted. You basically have to hope that another guard doesn't walk by and see the body, or you have to take that person down in an area that's kind of closed off. So for a game that puts so much emphasis on stealth, this feels like it was a bit of a missed opportunity. The story also surprised me a little bit. Rather than giving us another origin story, like people are calling this the James Bond origin story, I look at this as more of a reimagining of James Bond, and I think that is accurate. The original James Bond novels were written in the 50s, and the movies came out in the 60s. The world has changed a lot since then, and so have the threats that spies deal with. So instead of Cold War espionage or something like that, First Light focuses more on modern ideas like artificial intelligence, digital surveillance, hacking, and whatnot. It still feels like James Bond, but updated for today. You'll meet familiar characters like M, Q, Moneypenny, while also getting introduced to some newcomers like Balma and Teresa Lorca. Even though I consider this game to be more of a reimagining, it still feels like it's James Bond. He still has the confidence, the charm, the dry sense of humor, and of course the iconic one-liners that you've come to know and expect.
Drinking alone was never my forte.
Well, I didn't realize you were this thirsty.
Parched, actually.
It feels like a fresh interpretation without losing the personality that defines the character. One relationship in the game that you particularly enjoy is Bond's evolving dynamic with Greenway. It ends up becoming one of the stronger emotional threads in the story. Without spoiling anything significant, I stayed invested from beginning to end, and I think the developers did a great job modernizing Bond while still respecting what came before. Visually, the game looks fantastic. A lot of people don't talk about it enough, but the environments are detailed, varied, packed with locations that feel worthy of a James Bond adventure, and there's even a couple of times where there were moments where I found myself slowing down just to take in the view.
Talk about a killer view.
Technically, there were a few issues with this game. Now, if you're like me, and I don't think anyone else really had this problem, probably just a me thing, but I was playing on PC and I was using my Nintendo Switch Pro controller, right? And when you do that, the controls are inverted by default. So the A button on your controller is actually the B button in the game. And the B button's the A button, the X button's the Y button, the Y button's the X button. So it's a very specific problem that a lot of people might not face, but it was definitely frustrating while it lasted. I found myself at certain times hitting the wrong button and screwing something up in the game, and while you were like, I was trying to stealth and it ended up becoming a brawl instead. The enemy AI can also be a little bit inconsistent. Most of the time it behaves normally, but every now and then an NPC will do something random and it kind of breaks the feeling or the immersion of the game. Like you're locked in and you're just like, oh wait, I'm still playing a game. I'm not actually James Bond. This computer, this NPC is just broken, right? So, what are you cleaning, dude? What are you doing? It's not... Must be a little bit of a glitch in the game still. This guy's just stuck in place. A little bit buggy of a game, I don't know. Come on, IO active, or IOI active. This is kind of disgraceful. Or should I blame Amazon? These two are kind of just glitched. They're stuck here. Can I just... That was weird. That's a weird glitch in the game right there. Remember back in the day when you had no like day one patches and you would just kind of like get the game, it'd be done, completed, none of that. Another complaint about this game that I didn't really know that I had until reviewing footage was the disguise mechanics. Like honestly, I completely forgot they existed until I started putting this video together. And that says a lot. Like, we get the first disguise when you're doing the initial mission, you put on a jacket, and then you don't really find another one until, like, in my playthrough, I didn't find a single other disguise, right? And it can make the game easier. You can put on a hat of, like, the hotel staff, and you can get into certain areas, unless there's a watcher present, but it does make things a little bit easier. You can move around in the enemy camp and whatnot and not be detected. And it says a lot that it's a feature in the game, but in my playthrough, it never really stood out or became part of how I approach missions. Thankfully, none of these issues happened often enough to kind of hurt the experience. So to answer the question I said in the beginning of the video, what makes a good James Bond game? For me, it's not the gunfights, it's not the cars, not the gadgets, not even the girls. It's making you feel like James Bond. It's sneaking into places you shouldn't be, it's gathering intelligence, using the right tool at the right moment, talking your way out of dangerous situations, and only using violence when there's no other option. That's where 007 First Light gets it right. It isn't perfect, the stealth formula does get a little repetitive in the final stretch, some systems, like disguises, feel underused, and I would have loved a longer campaign, closer to 25 hours instead of 17. As you see, it took 17.2 hours for me to beat the game, especially a game that's going to cost you 90 bucks. If games that are approaching $100 or so in price, I would expect something around 25. Now, granted, I could have probably got closer to that 25 hours if I played it on the hardest difficulty. I played it on intended. I think the average has been between 15 and 20. And, you know, a game's now approaching $100. This one was $90 Canadian anyways. Like, I look for something a little bit longer. I kind of do an hour to price kind of ratio. You know, a 25 hours at $100 would be like $4 an hour. I mean, some people think it's a silly way to look at it, but I think it is like a valid critique if you're going to spend 3 figures on a game from at this point on. But these issues never really outweigh what the game does well. I genuinely had a great time with this from start to finish. I'm a James Bond fan, Casino Royale is my favorite movie, and I ended up giving this game an 8.75 out of 10. If you're a Bond fan like me, this is an easy recommendation. And even if you're not, if you're looking for a cinematic action game that blends stealth, gadgets, combat, and espionage, I think it's absolutely worth your time. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and let me know what you thought of 007 First Light in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.